that's not only South Africa, right? That's Nigeria, that's Senegal, and lots of the other parts of Africa. Now, what we're seeing now is, if you will, the further maturation of that investment, right? So you see, capability being brought in from research institutes. And of course, you probably would the development of vaccination platforms. So in South Africa in particular, we're starting to see, this need for, let's say, Africa-specific manufacturing of vaccines come to the fore. So there's a lot of really, really exciting things that's happening in African healthcare. The ecosystem is very, very vibrant. And of course, the opportunity is for us to keep building on what has been done before to, try to answer some of these anomalies, right, and for the benefit of the continent generally.
Yeah, I totally agree. We see a lot of innovation coming from Africa in general. But also, I'd say we see a lot of AI prototypes, but far fewer solutions make it to the market or for that. So, Mr. Ayman, in your opinion, what are the main barriers preventing promising AI solutions from being adopted and efficiently implemented in the healthcare settings?
So I think there are a lot of barriers today to deploying efficient AI models, and especially industrialized AIs in healthcare systems. The first one, I think, is the data dilemma, the availability of data across the different electronic health record systems. Actually, our EHR in Africa are very fragmented, very siloed, and the data is not available always with the right quality necessary to train right AI models. The second one, I think, the second barrier is the infrastructure, the lack of infrastructure. When I'm talking about infrastructure, I'm not only talking about compute power, I'm also talking about connectivity, connection, national health connection, because when we are dealing with transferring data in the healthcare systems, we need secure networks. Like in Tunisia, we are so proud because we have our health national networks. But in Africa, I think the lack of this connectivity is another barrier. And there is also one major barrier is the lack of vision of strategic approach. We are doing some AI initiatives, some AI pilots without any vision, without any strategy of industrialization. That's why pilots don't fail today, and also the lack of workforces. We don't have in Africa this health data hub, this AI task forces. So this set of barriers are today is very important to solve it in order to deploy AI at a large scale in healthcare system.
Thank you very much. So, one more question for you. So, since you are like an expert in new generation AI and you're also an advisor for the health ministry in Tunisia. So the first one is, in your opinion, how can like this new tools of new generation AI help to close this gap between the innovation and the actual implementation in the settings? And from your role as an advisor to the Ministry of Health, what role could like digital transformation agencies could play in order to enhance and like help the adoption of AI solutions in health in general?
A lot of questions. So the first one, the first question is how I think AI, new Gen AI especially, not only generative AI, agentic AI, reinforcement learning AI, offers, I think, a great opportunity to make the healthcare systems more efficient, more equitable, universally accessible. So this is one of the major impact of AI. I think there is 3 levels. The first one is alleviating the workforce shortage and optimizing different resources. We know today, to be honest, that the doctors are spending more time in paperwork than in relation with patient, in the real medical expertise. And I think new Gen AI is changing the game by automating the different administrative tasks, more time to the doctor to be focused on the medical expertise. And I think also AI-driven frameworks, AI-driven predictive frameworks can help also hospitals anticipate the needs of patients and also to optimize the allocation of limited resources. The second levers, I think, of new Gen AI is democratizing the diagnostic expertise. And I think this is one of the most advanced impact of new Gen AI is access to specialized expertises. Why? We know all that best specialists are concentrated in urban centers. So AI democratizes this expertise. For example, in image medical, in teleradiology, we know that AI platforms outperforming now radiologists in human eyes. For example, in cynology, in mammography, in detecting cannular infiltrant or lobular infiltrant cancer for breast cancer. In pathology, we democratize the access to some biomarkers in order to have customized medicine and customized therapy like immunotherapy. And I think behind in the pathology, also new Gen AI helps general practitioners to improve their practitioner by affording support, decision support platform or assistant. I have a real example for this. General practitioners they have a lack in interpreting electrocardiogram, for example. So a general practitioner in a rural region with an AI-driven platform for automating the interpretation of electrocardiogram can now detect some cardiomyopathy disease like a specialist, and we can so democratize this for all persons. The third levels also is the Gen AI is revolutionizing telemedicine. Now telemedicine it's not just a video conference between doctor and patient. Now AI integrated with wearables, with digital twins, we can detect a lot of disease at an early stage. For example, at Scalia, we developed recently a Tunisian platform to predict the risk of diabetes. And this is very helpful for endocrinologists to do their different tests.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ayman. So speaking about telemedicine, I will talk with you, Mr. Bahram. So you are the CEO of SinaCare, which is like a quite original platform for telemedicine. Could you tell us more about it?
Thank you very much. The whole story starts when I worked as a researcher at hospital, and we work on the research regarding migration and health, and we found out why people with a different cultural background or from different countries, they are seeking healthcare with the different patterns. So since we want to create an equal environment that everyone have equal access to healthcare, so we dig into it for long years, and we understand language skills, cultural gap, system complexity, and different medical experience compared to the home country. These are top 4 reasons that people don't ask for help when they are not in their home country. And based on that, it was 2015. So there was something in the US called Doctor on Demand, which inspired me too much. And then in those years, if you remember, there were little bit complexity lots of wars going around, so we have some situation. So we designed Sina for patients that they couldn't speak English and Swedish to be able to communicate to doctor and get help. Because when patients make sure that the communication with doctor happens, it's 50% almost a treatment process. So for us, since we use patient-centric design model, it's important that if patients use technology in the way that contributes in the treatment process. So technology is nice, but the key question is that if it's really help to the patients or confuse patients, because we don't want to confuse them when they want to use the system, because it leads them to do not ask for help. So they stay at home and then the symptom escalated and then it leads to unwanted hospitalization in near future. So that's the whole story of us starts. And even when COVID happens, we help a huge community. In one case, almost 30,000 patients to get access to certain medicine. And then we changed the design to the mobilize in Europe. We are traveling between different countries. You get connected to the same resources in your home country. So if I go to London, I can talk to Swedish doctor, but pick up my medicine in London. So I don't need to go towards the local complexity and vice versa. So this is the things that we love to, scale it up. But based on what I heard in last 2 days, I can see a huge potential for make unite services or unique services for Africa, because what I can hear that everyone wants to do something together, which is very nice. And I can see that it will be even help all the patients groups to get access to proper treatments when they need it, and no one left behind.
Thank you very much. So, from my understandings, like in SinaCare, you are dealing with a lot of data, but
Yes.
a lot of like different source of data, different language, different locations, etc.
Yes.
So my question is regarding the data quality, which is like, as we know, it's a huge challenge, mostly in Africa. So in SinaCare, from your experience, how do you ensure like these diverse data streams remain reliable enough to power the AI tools behind your?
We just designed different layers of data, and there are some informations from patients that's not every day we need that, but sometimes based on each symptom, when they go to the center, the request come and fetch the data which is related to that question. So we try to make sure the data that we collected and transfer it to the center, that doctor to understand is enough for that certain symptoms. So not too much information because of GDPR in Europe or HIPAA. We cannot touch too much information. But in other hands, if with the consent of patients, they have rights to share their own journal system with us so we can see all the details. And then it helps a physician to make proper decision based on the patient's information.
Thank you very much for
Yes.
your contribution. So back to you, Mr. Sam. So we usually say that we can't amplify a broken system. And we know like many African health systems still struggle with data fragmentation and the data record sharing. So in your opinion, how can AI help and add real value in these settings that still struggle with limited infrastructure and fragmented data?
No, thank you for the question. And I think it's about thinking a little bit differently. And Karim had a very nice also speech before in terms of the potential is here, the power is here. Just don't try to fix a broken system, reinvent it. And I think this is where we are now with AI. You saw from what he showed, you can have 100x increase in resources of people, of development, of productivity. That means the young generation right now, what they can do is actually develop things much, much faster. So if the system is broken, don't try to fix it, try to reinvent it. And I think I've seen from several interactions that we have right now, there is a possibility around it. The requirements in terms of infrastructure, I agree with the whole, we need more energy, we need more compute, we need to go to space. But actually there's a lot we can fix in a small scale, at least, in our rural, in our cities, there's a potential in there. So I think don't be frightened by what is above. I've been coming from companies like Novo Nordisk, from Novartis, where everything was, it's impossible. We cannot do AI on patients' data. Constantly being told you cannot send data. The only thing is because people are afraid, because they don't understand what's actually happening with this data. It is not because it's dangerous. So to your question, Sana, I think even if it's broken, the infrastructure, I think there is a way right now with AI to potentially, and the young generation might just go faster and improve it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move to another crucial point when talking about digital health innovation, which is money and financing. So back to you, Mr. Ghazi and Mr. Warren. So we hear a lot that many startups struggle once they leave the pilot stage, like they struggle to go beyond the pilot and the local market. So in your opinion, so what are the main barriers, the financial barriers that nowadays African startups are facing to go beyond this pilot stage and the local markets?
Yeah, I think they're probably solving the wrong problems. That's the reason they don't go beyond pilot phases, right? So, I mean, to your point, you cannot try to increment on what has been done before, right? And just to draw quickly an analogy from the one of the speakers earlier this morning is showing the horse and cart, and then the introduction of the automobile, right? If you would ask people what they wanted in New York in 1907, they probably would have said, "We want a faster horse." That's incremental mentality thinking there. We want a faster horse. We want a wagon with big fat tires or whatever the case might be. That's the incremental mentality thinking that I find lots of startups in Africa right now, particularly in the healthcare space, are struggling with. What we're really, really excited about is when they start to do transformative thinking and almost reimagining what healthcare delivery could look like, given where we are. And the wonderful thing is that this is not going to be a first for Africa, right? Because what is M-Pesa? What led to the creation of M-Pesa? It was the very same. Let's throw out the rule books. We know that we don't have technology. We know we don't have landlines in Kenya. So therefore, let's throw the whole rule book out and rather focus on what do we have and what are the needs and how can we leverage the resources that we have in a fundamentally different way. Here's a quick anecdote for you. I think I saw recently that the successor to M-Pesa, right, is now carrying about, I think it's 65% of the GDP of Kenya, running on one system, right? If you had said, hey, look, no, let's go increment on, rolling out landlines or whatnot, that would never happen. And so I would argue that perhaps one of the reasons why lots of startups, particularly in healthcare, fail after they come off of pilots is because they're solving the wrong problems and they're trying to do incremental improvements rather than fundamentally reimagining what a solution could be.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, Mr. Ghazi, if you like to add something about this point.
So I'll add an additional perspective on what was just said. In our case, we invest in, on the healthcare side, we invest in life science startups, so drug discovery, drug treatments, medical devices, and so on. So there isn't, it's not the same as deploying a software as a service for medical or for healthcare. So the proof of concept going to the next stage typically requires enormous amounts of science and discovery and risk in terms of trying to solve fundamental chemical or physics problems and so on. And so getting to the next level basically requires enough talent to be able to solve these problems that are global problems. We are not, at least in our case, we are not investing in startups that focus on maybe regional or local diseases or treatment. So you're not competing, but you're basically developing science that could be developed in Japan, it could be developed in Brazil, etc. So you need talent that can match what those other countries can do. And secondly, it simply requires a very patient capital because it could take 8, 7, 9, 10 years to get to the result that we're looking for. And then it requires enormous amounts of capital to get through the clinical phase trial and so on. But in our case, the bet is that if one of those actually works out, it's $1 billion bet. And that's how we look at it. And it's based on the fact that we, at least in many parts of Africa, including South Africa, we have very good researchers, we have very good biologists, we have very good research universities. They just lack the ability to go from the lab to the next stages. And typically they do excellent research, but they put it in the drawer and then they move on to the next thing. And so our job is to kind of help them get to, at least in our capacity, to the next step, and then to find the investors that have the capital and the long track record to take them all the way to the end.
Thank you very much. You can respond to the answer to my next question, which was regarding the public and private partnerships in the healthcare, and how can these type of partnerships help to scale innovation that in a way ensure both sustainability but also the alignment with the public health needs. So I want to ask about like.
Okay, so it's a part of our business model, specifically to go and partner with research labs. In the case of Tunisia, we're starting with Tunisia, with all the research labs that are interested in moving beyond just pure research, and to structure our with those labs so that it's win-win. We take the risk in terms of the funding, the commercialization, the partnerships, finding the next round of funding. They take care of all of the research part of it with support from us, because the public, at least in North Africa, typically are starved for resources and capital. So we inject that. And then when we get to the stage where there's actually a patent or a license or something like this, we make sure that there is significant value being returned to those labs, not because we are not capitalist and want to basically make a lot of money, but because that also helps regenerate the amount of research that's being done so that we can all become trillionaires like Elon Musk, but actually doing something useful for humanity instead of some of his fantasies.
Yeah, thank you very much. Mr. Warren, I like the fact that you said earlier, maybe the main gaps for the main barriers for startups today is focusing on the wrong problem. So here's a question for all of you, like in your opinion and from your experience and expertise, what are the most underexposed area for startups to focus on today, like in Africa or in general, like globally? I'll let you start if you want.
So maybe 3 areas that we're particularly excited by, right? So these are all areas where you have huge TAM, huge needs, right? And you have significant talent, right? So to borrow from what my colleague was saying, whether it's PEPFAR, whether it's just national investments in education and research over the last 25 years, do have significant research talent in Africa, right? I mean, I met he's in Africa, right? He's an African working, right? So the top mathematician in the world is African. So there's talent in Africa, right? So if you then were to look at those kind of areas, one area that stands out to us is drug discovery. I was talking about the cost of bringing a new drug to market and the time it takes. In today's approaches, you're sort of looking at about 13 years. And last time I checked, it was about $94 million a year, to go through all of the processes, right? So all the way through phase 3 trials, it's about $94 million a year. So that using AI to, focus on potentially the early stage discovery processes, that's sort of like a perfectly good use for these neural networks that could, scan and model data in such a fundamentally different way. So drug discovery, potentially using, some of the things that Africa has in spades, right? Indigenous knowledge systems, that for us is very, very exciting. Maybe the second area that we're super excited by is in mental health, right? So if we think that, doctor-patient ratio is bad, doctor-psychologist ratio in Africa is even a bigger opportunity, right? And again, triaging, cases, whether it's gender-based violence or any one of these things, creating avatars that could actually provide that initial triage-based support and scaling that across, many countries. We think that that's, obviously with all the caveats around privacy and so on baked into that. But I like to imagine that those are nice problems to have, right? Doing this in a purposeful, secure way, and all of those are nice problems to have to grapple with. And I think that the talent that we have, I'm sure they can address those in the fundamental way. So those are two. Maybe the third, broadly speaking, is on, this efficiency thing. We like to think that competitiveness today comes from total factor productivity, right? So if you keep incrementing your total factor, and this is probably one of the only areas that, you need to focus on incrementalism rather than transformation. But if you keep incrementing your total factor productivity, you are going to grow your economies, right? And we think that the ability for reasoning and inference engines like we have today to really zoom in and focus on the opportunities of bringing broad-scale efficiency improvements across the healthcare ecosystem. We are very, very excited by those, by that as a third. So yeah, those are three broad areas that we're zooming in on.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
So, Warren, I agree with you for the drug discovery part. I worked a lot on drug discovery at Pfizer, Sanofi in the United States, even in Europe. But the problem in Africa, we don't have regulatory frameworks to establish this kind of trust in order to adopt platforms for drug discovery and for clinical trials or real-world integration of submedicine. That's why I think we have in Africa, we have to do, like AI Act in Europe, have to do an No Africa AI Act in order to facilitate this adoption and establishment of trust in the, for drug discovery, especially because the impact is major. Also.
Reaction to that, right? Because, and with all the due respect and things for people who concern themselves or know a lot more about these things than I, I think that we should experiment with these things
Yeah.
and view these challenges as opportunities.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I really, really think that today's cohort of scientists and researchers and technopreneurs, I think that they are so empowered with I wish I was a 23-year-old. I'm 24 today, but I wish I was 23-year-old again, looking at technology in the way that we were back in the day. Because I think that the has changed in such a dramatic way. And we are empowered so much more by technology and by the pervasiveness of what we have, that these are wonderful problems to have because the solutions are within
Yeah,
our brain,
exactly.
our heads.
Yeah.
I think, Abid, you just tell whatever I want to say. So, but the point is that if you want to really go towards the real solutions, or as you mentioned, do not build something which is not going to be useful. That's why the biodesign process or design process is very important, and more than time on design or need finding or journey map. It's not a cost, it's an investment, because mainly in healthcare systems, hospitals, physicians, or research centers, I mean, we cannot remove them. We just need to just find out, okay, for example, Asia, what are the map of symptoms? I don't know that, but definitely the ministry, they have it. And what do we need to make sure that they get? So those needs, when it comes, and we as an entrepreneur start to look into it, that how we can change that process. We should understand what is the treatment process, and then what is my role to make that process easier. We cannot, I mean, healthcare is naturally conservative industry. I mean, engineers, we can make mistakes easily, but doctors, they cannot, because maybe to heaven. So that's why it is important, that relation and communication between medical knowledge and engineering is important. Also, put as much as time to define the real need. Sometimes we understand, oh, no, we don't need it, it works. Because of whatever reason, people are not going to use that technology, which leads to more complexity.
I absolutely agree. And Mr. Ghazi, from an investor point of view, what would be like the underexposed area to focus on for startups today?
So I think it's very basic, just like applying electricity to everything that moves, right? So in what that is definitely accelerating the possibility of discovering new drugs using AI or whatever other method comes out after that. It's also being able to mine knowledge from the last 100 years worth of published research, to go back and find things that maybe were very difficult to find before using other methods. But most importantly, I think in our case, since we're operating in an emerging market, and that's kind of our mandate, we're still trying to maybe hit the areas where we can have the most impact for every dollar or every dinar that we deploy. What I mean by that is we need to be much more practical in terms of maybe developing solutions that have immediate markets, as opposed to developing mRNA or something of this kind of fundamental science. We just don't have quite yet the capital and the infrastructure to be able to do that. So for us, we want to just first take advantage of everything that's available today, shelf ready, as they say, so that we can try to maximize the return on what exists, and then hopefully use that success to go much more, I would say, in depth, like you would see in ecosystems in Europe or the US or in Asia.
Thank you very much. And finally, Mr. Sam, what do you think about like the the trends or the actual need today for startups in healthcare, especially from your experience in the pharmaceutical?
Yeah, maybe I'll pick also on what you said, Warren, in terms of drug discovery. So I'm an immunologist by training. I've studied the immune body, how we react, vaccines, antigens, and drug discovery is not easy. It takes a long time. But what is feasible and what we should maybe also focus a little bit more in Africa is more on early diagnosis. We have a lot of treatments that work very well already. The patients don't know about them. The patients are not treated properly. They're treated too late. And this, I think, for me, for any startup, the age of AI right now, if you want to really have a leap-bound effect, it's about early diagnosis, finding really the patients that need the treatment at the right time. That's what I would say could accelerate. After that, also discovering more drugs, obviously, but there's already a lot of them that can be used.
Thank you very much. I think we don't have enough time, but I'd like to invite you all to share one sentence vision, like in 5-10 years, in your opinion, what success will look like for Africa digital health transformation or revolution, like one sentence.
I was going to say at least another couple of M-Pesas, right? But I mean, I'd really like to see, manufacturing of drugs in Africa really happen. Particularly, like you were saying, these drugs that could make a significant difference to improving the healthcare across the continent, right? So malaria, all of these challenges. So yeah, I'd like to see that done at scale, and yeah, hopefully that would make a really significant impact. Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah. Mr. Ghazi.
So in my case, I'd love to see African talent stay in Africa, develop Africa, and not have to go overseas to fulfill their professional dreams, and stay here and create wealth here, create value here, as opposed to enriching other people who are pretending that we're going over there to take their jobs.
Thanks.
I think from digital health perspective, in 5 years, I hope that we can see more integration between African countries, so the patient can float around in case of there is enough resources in each countries and get connected with unique EMR system that they can use.
Yeah, I think for me, what I hope is that the gap that exists right now doesn't widen. And my worry is that you've seen it from the slides of Karim, exponential growth everywhere else in the world. If that is not also matched in Africa, it only means a wider gap that's going to happen, because we're going to be left behind in here basically more than anything. So the only way is accelerating and bridging that gap. And what it's going to mean for the healthcare system is going to be more revenues, more resources locally, more subventions, more education. And I think that's what's going to fix it. But otherwise, we miss the gap.
Mr. Ray.
For me, I think for the next 10 years, establishing fully digital hospitals, virtual hospitals, it can be a great solution to solve the different problematic in Africa, such accessibility, equitability. I think now in Tunisia we are doing this, and we are so proud of this. Establishing digital hospitals driven by artificial intelligence is the next future solution for Africa, I think.
Thank you very much. So I think we have to close up. So yeah, of course.
So I have one question. So for me, what I see, what is happening in Africa, is that we have lots of problems which are about data, because here we are talking about data fragmentation, unharmonized data, and sparsity of data. We have this a huge gap in Africa. And I wonder how, if you have ideas how to resolve these problems. Maybe you have an experience in Europe, maybe you have seen it maybe 10 or 15 years ago. It was something like this. how to face these problems, because to be able to do to help people, you need data from about people, and huge data, lots of data. So
Yeah, I
Thank
think
you.
maybe it's the misconception about huge data that we address. It depends for what instances that we're looking at. It's all about the use case. What are we trying to solve for right now? I think where the potential is, I mean, my work has always been around clinical data platforms and in terms of real-world evidence data, and trying to put all of this into data platforms so that AI can derive insights from it. And what we're discovering right now is actually, this is one area of large language models that we're underutilizing, which is actually cleaning data. Because they understand the data very well. I give you a simple example, multiple tables. One table calls it males, females. Another table calls it femme, and another table calls it M and F. This is a small problem, but it's a huge problem in data science. You use SQL queries, everything breaks. AI agents don't care. They understand those three columns very well. So we've leveraged this significantly in terms of data harmonization, in terms of understanding each columns, each data, and building a better pipeline afterward. And the last part is also what I call data democratization. It is not only about cleaning the data, it's about getting access to the data. So my work for the past 10 years have been, we have beautiful tables, we have beautiful databases everywhere, but people don't know how to use it. They don't know how to write SQL, they don't know how to write Python code to access it. With AI now, with AI agents, and if some of you stay for my talk afterwards, you will hear about, this is what it's allowing us to do now. Even that data, it's accessible now to much more people. Our medical doctors can actually ask questions about this data without having to require always a data scientist to answer that question. So it's really those gaps that I think, to what I was saying before, don't try to fix a process, maybe reinvent it completely, and even collection of data could be different.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your participation and for your insightful contributions. Thank you to the audience, and yeah,
Round of applause, please.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you so much. It was amazing. And right now we'll be witnessing a keynote with Mr. Sam Khalil about AI agent. Okay.
Yeah, happy to. No, I think, yeah, I can speak this one. That's fine. Yeah, completely.
Enjoy it.
Can we have the right slides that are on my computer? Yep, perfect. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for sticking around. Also, by the end, no, it's good. By the end of this day, the purpose of my talk today will really to be talking about something you've been hearing, and I've heard about it a few parts during the day, AI agents. And what are they, first of all? Because we hear a lot about them, but we cannot describe it. And can they actually help us solve little problems that we have? Just to let you a little bit about our company. So our company is a Swiss-based company in the north of Switzerland, in Basel. We're literally 10 minutes from France, 10 minutes from Germany. Where after having spent for myself 17 years in healthcare and pharma, and my partner having spent 20 years in terms of supply chain at big companies like IKEA, Volvo, Novo Nordisk, and Novartis, we have decided to basically embark on this new journey of like actually delivering in highly regulated environments our experience of how can you leverage AI for data basically that would have a purpose, and data that is highly secured, patients levels data basically, or banking data, supply chain data, confidential companies data. And that niche basically is really important because you don't want to just be doing a pilot. You want to actually be working on sensitive data that is around. We lost the slides in the back. I don't know if someone can put them back on. Yeah? No? Well, let's move to something else. Yeah? Good. Can I? Yeah. Am I in control now? Yeah? Okay, got it. So basically what we deliver within the organization is we have more than 20 full stack engineers. And this number, don't underestimate it. Like you saw from the presentations before of Karim, they are all basically AI experts that leverage all the latest technology. So they're probably working at the speed of 200 people at this point in time. And they're able to work in terms of different fields, including data engineering that we have been talking about, model training, for example, building governance. Because we are working in highly regulated environments, you need to have really secure ways of delivering your AI. We also work a lot on secured backends. So how do you put all of these LLMs in the right secure networking place? And we build full front-end applications. Because one thing you will notice, and all of you that in here maybe that have their own organizations, is that it's nice to have an AI. You actually need to have the infrastructure and the application to use this technology afterwards that is accessible to everyone in your organization. And we're trying to be as cloud and platform agnostic. Honestly, it doesn't matter where your data is or what your platform that you have internally at the organization. So if we move on to the next slide, in terms of core concepts, and I think it's an important one, I'll spend just 1 minute on it. I haven't seen it today. We all have been talking about AI, but AI is not actually a product. AI is not even a technology. AI is a theory. It's a methodology that we have always thought about. It's about how to build machines that will think, that will act like humans. And under this umbrella of AI, this is where basically we have started in the 1997s to talk about machine learning. Machine learning being basically a technology where you can start predicting based on everything that you have seen before. So if you have seen a lot of numbers, you can start to predict what is the next number. If you have seen a lot of financial data, you can start predicting the forecasting of that financial model. So this is why you see in the corner in here, tabular data. This is everything about Excel sheets, about data that you have in numbers in files. And then this evolved in terms of not looking only at forecasting of numbers, but to start looking at what we call deep learning. Deep learning is actually starting to build a neural network where you can understand better patterns. So the typical example, you're giving a cat and a mouse, you want to recognize, the model recognize which one is a cat, which one is a mouse. This is the deep learning methodology where you don't have actual data, you understand recognition and patterns in data. And a few years ago, you all know about this evolved into being generative AI. Generative AI, which is not only about creating new content, but it's also about leveraging language to use tools, and this is what I will show you. So it's really important, sorry, I was clicking on the computer. It's really important from that concept to always differentiate when we're talking about AI, which part of AI are we actually addressing in our current needs. So if we move on to this one, in terms of AI also, there is different ways right now when we talk about AI agents. You are all familiar with this left side of the diagram, which is LLMs, ChatGPT, or using Claude and Anthropic, for example. These are, for me, you know, the typical knowledge. They know what they have been trained on. They have been trained on the whole internet, and they can tell you stories, they can write emails, they can improve, but they cannot act. They cannot act, meaning they cannot actually execute some code. They cannot let you execute a different methodology in your database. They cannot change the data in your database. They're pure language models, which is at the opposite of what you have in the right. What is an AI agent? It's an agent, basically, it's a computer code that will turn the intelligence of the LLM into action. And for this, what we mean by it is that you will give it tools for this agent to be able to do actions. So you've heard about, you know, all these models, but now give them memory. Give them an ability to learn and to recall. So imagine in a company right now, you would like to give them the ability to know your company data that no one else knows outside. They haven't been trained on it. You want to give them tools. You want them to be able to use your computer. You want them to be able to access your database. And finally, you want them also to have a way to reflect. You want to put them together, basically, and decide on what have they seen and what they can be thinking one after the other. And you will see this in a few slides. So when you build those agents, the beauty of it is really when you start it and putting them together. When you start observing it from up and seeing those agents talking to each other, you could have them as different workflows where basically one agent will pass it to the second agent in terms of information. Imagine it as you're trying to do a literature search right now. One agent will go on the internet, figure out and pick up all the different papers that they have found on the internet, but pass this information to the second agent to now do a summarization. And why is this important? It's important because if you are working in highly regulated environments, or if you're working in a production grade environment, you want to be able to test every part of this workflow the same way as your factory, the same way as you're testing it when you're developing software as a code. And so when you're having every single agent capable of doing one task, one small task, but doing that task extremely well, you can test that task every night. You can make sure that that agent is not doing things differently like now. You don't want an agent like ChatGPT as an LLM that can write poem, give you a recipe, and also tell you about your next trip next Monday, because then you can't test all of these different capabilities. So our specialization is really to actually dumb them down to be able to do one thing, but do it extremely well, and can it be tested over and over. And so you can put those agents really in a huge orchestration. You can have 20, 50, 100 agents all talking to each other to solve really complex cases. And I'll show you a few concrete cases that we have been building with different of our partners, because honestly now we need to really stop talking only about generative AI. This is now the era where we're talking more about AI agents and how they can help organizations and small processes or large processes in different organizations. And we've seen this really across multiple organizations that we have been working with. And some of you might say, well, how powerful can those agents be? Can it really work or not? And this week, basically, Anthropic released this paper. I don't know if some of you have seen this paper from Anthropic, which is first known reported AI orchestrated cyber espionage campaign that happened. So a China government sponsored basic cyber espionage based on them, what they are saying into this paper. And what happened in here is basically they had a group of agents, no human involved, that were all able to attack but different small part of an infrastructure. So Anthropic had built safety in terms of their agents. They have built safeguards that you cannot basically be cyber criminal, you cannot attack anything. But actually each of those agents was built in a way that they didn't know what they were doing. But the combination of the work of all those agents together led to almost 30 companies being impacted by this attack and this espionage. And so if you don't understand this, you don't know how to protect yourself also from it. But the other flip of the coin also, if this is powerful enough to do cyber espionage, imagine what it could do for our processes and what we are trying to do internally in each organization. You can actually really develop some powerful technologies and tools with these new agents right now. So I'll show you a few tools that we have been building and give you just an inspiration of what AI agents could do. So this tool in here is something that I think could also be in Africa extremely useful for you. In terms of medical education, we often lack the attention span of doctors. We unfortunately, doctors don't have enough time to listen to a 30 to a 40-minute video. And so what we have built in here for a medical education company is that they can upload a 30-minute or a 40-minute video. It is fully transcribed by the AI agent, so that's an easy speech to text. But the actual benefit that we're adding with AI agents is actually we have scientific AI agents that QA the transcript immediately. They go on PubMed, they go on clinicaltrials.gov, they look at the latest clinical trials that was released, fix the typos of the clinical trial, change the name of the drug because maybe the drug didn't exist yet in the training model, and have a perfect transcript that is created by those agents at this point in time. And from that transcript afterwards, you can literally be building a full, shorter video that is fully unbiased, still covers all the points, but most importantly, with a podcast over it, voiceover in any language you want. So you have now, because you took the video, you've transcribed it and you have a perfect transcription, you can go backward now of text to speech in any other language, basically, and have a full training. Another methodology that we have built, which is around the training platform, where again in here, I think there is a lot of potential in terms of leveraging those training platforms, where with one document or one website that you provide to the tool, you have a group of agents that will create your PowerPoint deck completely. Now, this exists. There's a lot of PowerPoint deck creations tools online right now, but this will actually create it in the company's brand guidelines immediately. But most importantly, it will also create the training material that goes with it so that you know actually what are you training your employees or your physicians onto this data. The most important part of this training program is that actually now users that are following the training, so you've gone from just a paper, a PDF, to a PowerPoint deck that has a whole training, but now the person being trained can chat with this content. And that chat with the content is extremely helpful because you monitor all of this chat basically patterns and you can adjust your training because you know where people did not actually understand the content. And you adjust it and you continuously improve on your training material. Another one that's simple and to the point I was discussing, with the panel before, you don't have to boil the ocean always, but people tell us, my biggest problem is invoice processing. I receive invoice nonstop, we receive bills nonstop, I have to send invoices and expenses. And right now, there is a few OCR tools that exist, obviously. But imagine combining invoice processing with AI agent that understand the context of your invoice and understand the potential fraud that could be in that invoice because the company that is invoicing you has been sending it to different departments of the organization in 2 different languages or different formats. You now have a better way of detecting fraud also in your invoices that you're receiving by adding just a little bit of AI agents to these tools. So the point I'm trying to do in here, and I'll show you a few more quickly, is that it is not always about, the latest advancement and going to the moon. It's about small incremental benefits that are possible today that will give you what Karim was mentioning as this productivity increase or this acceleration for your organizations. Another thing that we have seen, and we are working with significant number of companies in retails, is that the whole supply chain and demand sensing. You can now leverage not only machine learning model of forecasting your sales, forecasting your inventory, but you can have also AI agents in the mix in charge of your operational in your organization that looks at this forecasting and this demand sensing and adjust your orders, adjust your sales, adjust your promotional material based on where your forecast of your demand is. So you can think about it in retail of making sure that when you're not selling something, it's actually immediately impacted by your agent of, should I reduce the cost? Should I send it to another store that is selling more of this equipment? This is a simple tool also of leveraging AI agents in retail. And finally, something that you have probably all seen, but I want to just adjust a little bit of what we can do with it, is a knowledge base based on your internal data, your confidential data. Most people will do what we call a RAG. You will be just talking with your data that you have internally, you chat with your data, and you have the source of truth sitting beside it. What we have done in here in pharma is that you actually build a whole, what we call knowledge graph around your data as well. Because what is important is not just that you want to find information in one PDF. You want to know the person that created this PDF, when were they hired? What did they also write something else into the organization? You want to fully understand the path of all your context and your data when you're chatting. You're not trying to get information from just one paper or one PDF you have in your organization. You do the whole connectivity of your data, and then you can expand it with external data as well. And that, I think, is a significantly powerful tool that we are using in pharma, but we're also using in banking, where imagine, for example, your banking collaborator knows exactly what next product they should suggest to you based on all the different forms that you have submitted internally. And finally, something we have seen in here, and unfortunately the video will not work, is that you can now chat, and this is the point we were talking chat about with your data. In large pharmaceutical companies where I have worked, basically, medical doctors know the disease, they know very well everything about their patients, but they cannot write SQL code to actually analyze when they're just looking at a small information in the huge amount of data. In this case in here, we had 900,000 patients, more than 5 billion data points to interrogate. And all they want, those doctors, is to find a pattern, a subgroup of responders. This is what now AI and AI agents can do. They can write Cypher queries, they can write SQL queries to go and analyze basically this data, but with an open book of what's the code that they have written, so that you can use that code and send it to your data scientist afterwards for validation. And I'll skip a few of those to just finish with this one, which is, what do you need when you're trying to build basically those solutions and those AI agents? We've talked about it a lot during the day-to-day data platforms. Data is essential. Garbage in, garbage out, you all heard about it. But you can also use AI to improve your data. So the data platform foundation is extremely important for everything that you're doing. But it's also your biggest monetary competitive advantage. Your data is your only data to you. So every data that you have that is not on the internet, you're just having a competitive advantage from an AI perspective. So always think about, is there anything in my data that could actually differentiate me from others if I was to put AI onto it? The second point is not just building AI. Everyone can do a pilot, everyone can do a POC. Make sure you're building production-ready AI that is responsible, that is observable. You need to know every single step that goes through when you're building or when you're running your AI. So that's why I was telling you about the testing. Every night you need to test the AI model, the workflows. You need to be able to observe everything that's happening, and you need to know which models you're using. Because unfortunately, with a lot of the API calls, overnight they change a little bit the model you're using, and you're actually, your whole application relies onto that model. So you need fallbacks, you need different ways of leveraging it. And finally, governance. Don't underestimate governance in some of the industries that we're working with, because you have to start with writing the first SOP before actually being able to build all those AIs. I give you an example. In many companies, when I start discussing this, I ask them, do you have any of your standard operating procedure that mention AI agents? None of them have. None of them have who this agent will represent. Is it the user that's in front of the computer, or is it a super user that have access to all the data of the organization? So you have to constantly think about the governance and how to actually put it in place and accelerate the access to this data. So I hope it gave you a little bit of an idea of the art of the possible. Not everything needs to be really magical and big. We will get there. You saw the curve. It's going at a full speed right now in terms of development of AI. But there's so much that can be done already, whether you're in an organization, you're a research lab, or just for you personally to try to accelerate things at this point in time. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sam. So, as I know, as a strong defender of responsible AI, from your perspective of view, how can we integrate, tailor the ethical requirements in our AI agents, especially in a critical field such as the healthcare? Is it the orchestrated AI orchestrated systems or models can be a way to go through?
Absolutely. And I think, you have different terminologies. We call them LLM as a judge, or we call them QA agents, ethical agents. So when you're building this workflow, one of the things that we always put in all our workflow is actually an agent will verify another agent's work. So that's the first beginning, in terms of like having from an ethical perspective in addition to your system prompt. The other part is the human in the loop. All the systems that I have shown you in here always have a human at some point in time, in the process, at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end, approving it. And so the same way as you would be asking a colleague a question or asking them to help you for an analysis, analyzes the same way with an AI agent, leverage it the same way from an ethical perspective. But be aware, and that's what I always tell people, you have to play with these things to understand the balance where you need to put the ethics and the bias that they might have. But the beauty is that you have so many now AI agents, LLMs, open source, non-open source, basically, and you can put them to fight against each other.
Anyone else have a question? I have a question.
Yes, please.
Actually, is right now medical doctor need to know how to code? This is the first question. And the second question, you talked about data. But the problem here we have in Africa, especially in Tunisia, is non-governance of the data.
Mm-hmm.
Our data is taken by other continents. So in the other hand, there is a lot of incubation programs for health tech, for marketing, etc.
Yeah.
So how we could, what is the solution about data governance? Because after data, we are speaking about quantum technology,
Yep.
and especially quantum technology in health, the results. So what do you think? What's the perspectives, the vision about this point? Because it's so important.
Not an easy question, not an easy one to finish the day. But to your first question, should doctor and everyone in general learn to code? I think you should all learn to code, but not to the level of being a super coder. You don't need anymore that level of understanding everything in engineering. Understand the basics only. Because now with the tool that you have available to you, you would be amazed at what you can deliver, but just a little bit of understanding of code. And it's just a language. It's like learning a bit of French or learning a little bit, of German. Learn that little bit that helps you get around, and you will see that you will be able to leverage a lot of those tools much better. To your second question on data ownership or governance, I think it's a topic that not only here in Africa we're talking about, everyone talks about it. My personal vision of it is that from a healthcare perspective, each of us should start by being owner of our data. We're not even owner of our data. So if I wanted to know, exactly. So if I wanted to know every single exams that I have done in the past, and I would say, 50 years that I'm around, I don't have this data myself. So before trying to say, Africa or the continent should be keeping its data, we have to rethink, and this is what I constantly say, how we actually work with healthcare data. We should all have this on our phone. This data, the data from all my life right now will fit on my phone. And so it's about who is the first one that's going to invent this technology? Who's the first one that's going to push this? People will tell you it's not interoperable. Your data might not work with your data, but we can fix it. It's the same way we're saying, horses will not be replaced by cars. We've this many often today. I think this is the solution, rather than trying to put barriers and blocking everything. We should just have access to our data.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sam.
Thank you.
Round of applause. And right now, we're passing to the third panel and the final panel of today, 5G, IoT, building Africa's intelligent infrastructure. So I call to the stage Mr. Diya Shisha, Mr. Naufel Dabbabi, Mr. Rashid Abdel Haq, Mr. Christian, Oui. Mr. Naufel Dabbabi, c'est bon. Our dear moderator, Mr. Mohammed Monsef. Round of applause.
Okay, so we have 2 mics. Let's put another one here. Okay, so them email. Okay. No, it's okay. We'll take the mic one by one to make the presentation. So if you want, we can start. I don't know for the event organizers. Is that okay for you? I'm not sure, but yeah, I guess we can proceed. We are the master of the show now. So thank you for the invitation here to be Innovation City and moderating this session, I guess the last one of the day. It will be around the thematic of 5G, IoT, AI factories, how they can build intelligent infrastructure in Africa. So I will make a very brief introduction to our guest. I will be the last. So Mrs. Iman, yes, from, yeah, please. You have to press the button, yeah. There is some technical issue, but
Hi.
we can handle it. Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. So I'm Imen Ghdiwi, originally from Tunisia, donc Tunisia, and I'm here to present United Nations University, the United Nations think tank. Our agency is originally based in Portugal. We operate under the Secretary General, and our unit is specialized in digital governance and electronic governance. So we mainly provide technical assistance to state members. And today I'll be here to present the AI blueprint, the case of Egypt, one of the most innovative cases, and I think that would bring us some insights and guide us around the conversation. Thank you.
Sounds good, thank you. So yeah, we can proceed. So we start with Mr. Rashid. Rashid.
Okay, thank you. Thanks everyone. Thanks for the organizer to have invited me to participate in this panel. And thank you for the valiant audience that stayed the last panel. I appreciate that. I'm Rashid Abdul Khalaq. I'm solution architect working for NVIDIA. I've been working for NVIDIA for 6 years now, specialized in healthcare. And I'm also born and raised in Tunisia, originally from Mahdia, not far from here. Pleasure to be part of this panel.
Thank you, Innovation City, for organizing this GAICA conference. Thank you, Ooredoo, to be here as panelist. So I'm Naufal Dibabi, IT Director at Ooredoo Tunisia. So we are starting our journey toward embracing AI for both internal use and to offer AI as for B2B customer as well.
Thank you. So I will present myself. I am Dia Shisha. I am a director within Deloitte. I manage cybersecurity infrastructure and infrastructure within Deloitte. I am Tunisian and I am based in Tunisia. I am pleased to be within you in this friendly meeting.
Yes, so Kelechi Okereke, Senior Director at the GSMA. For those who may not know, the GSMA is the industry association that represents mobile operators globally. And yeah, we talk everything about 5G, AI, IoT. So it's a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you for all the panelists who attended this session, at least on the not last. I'm Mohammed Munsif bin Amor. I'm Senior Manager at EY. And I am working on the market segment of ICT actors and developing the ecosystem related to. I'm working on Tunisia, Africa, Middle East, and Europe West region. So I want to say welcome to all of you, all of us, and all of you. So I guess that we can start our session. Okay, this session is mainly about telecommunication. And telecommunication is the most important matter when we are talking about technology, because in telecommunication we are talking about connectivity, services, and digital. So I guess that we are in the core business of our panel of today. So our approach will be with our experts from GSMI, from consulting ecosystem, from service provider ecosystem, and also for service provider technology, and of course, what can be bring as insight or strategic view from United Nations point. So let's start with Mr. Kenishi for you. Okay. I have prepared my question, but I want to make zero error. So, Mr. Kenishi, how are African MNOs, operators, are preparing for the AI area? And from GSMI point of view or perception, what are the priorities?
Okay, yeah, thanks for that question. I think the first thing to say is that telecoms operators generally, globally, see AI as a huge opportunity for them. Now, there are two areas that are very important for operators. If you think about mobile operators in the middle, on one side is what we call AI for networks. And then on the other side is what we call networks for AI. So AI for networks is about how mobile operators are prioritizing the use of AI within their networks, both to improve operations, improve efficiency, serve their customers better. That is on the AI for network side. And then on the networks for AI side is how mobile operators are building resilience into their networks so that they will be able to, carry huge AI workload that we're going to see in the future. Now, that's what's happening on a global basis. So coming to your question, for Africa, now the realization that something has to happen is there, without it. Operators across Africa realize that there are opportunities to get in using AI to both improve as well as create new revenue streams. But in terms of adoption, in terms of usage, it's too early days for many operators, in doing that. And there are many reasons for it, which I'm sure, as we continue in this conversation, either myself or my colleagues on the panel are going to raise it, whether it's the investment required to build up these networks, whether it is talent, the lack of talent, to services. There is general organizational inertia to move away from known and established ways of doing things to adopting this new technology is fantastic. So there are still those teething problems amongst many operators in Africa, but I will say that the general direction of travel is recognizing that there are opportunities to be captured from AI, and we're gradually moving in that direction. And to priorities, what are the priorities? I think what we have seen globally, we're very likely going to see in Africa, and it's that the lowest hanging fruit for operators is around customer service. That is one area that operators have struggled a great deal. We all think everybody in this room probably has a mobile phone, and if you need to call the customer care center of your mobile operator, and maybe you have to stay like 30 minutes on the line before somebody answers you, and all of that stuff, we know how frustrating that is. So there's a low-hanging fruit there in the area of customer care that operators are increasingly using AI. And then in terms of, maybe product development, services offerings, we're seeing a lot of integration of AI into many of those processes.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Kenishi. It is enough for starting. So I guess that we will move on the same point where Mr. Kenishi stopped, and we will proceed with Dia. So Mr. Dia, you are cyber, cloud, and IT infrastructure at Deloitte. So from your point of view, what is there any significant efforts from some countries in Africa, some region perhaps, for adopting advanced technology?
Thank you, Monsuf. So before speaking about strategies in the countries, and we are working within the region to develop their strategy, the country strategies, and the region strategy for AI. Let's return back a little bit to the pillar for AI. The 4 pillars for AI is data. We need data to run the AI and to have the information needed. We need infrastructure, and we will go more in detail in this meeting for the infrastructure part. We need also talent. We see that we have here the talent to develop use cases, but also we need use cases. Without use cases, without the business part, there is no AI. So this is the 4 pillars. But before that, we need strategies. We need the countries need strategy to develop AI. And we have worked with a lot of countries, and we know that a lot of countries, including Tunisia, developed their strategy for AI. So the pillar for their strategy is the digitalization, is to also the development of ecosystem, health ecosystem, education ecosystem. A lot of actions needed to develop use cases, infrastructure, because when we speak about AI, we need GPU, we need calculation, we need also to store data, a huge amount of data needed for training, and we need to have them in-house within the country because there is a sovereignty, there is a security part, but also because to manage all this data, we need them closer to the client, to the end user. So this is why we need more investment in infrastructure. What we see in Africa that we see a lot of development in infrastructure part from the telecom operator, and I think that Naufal will develop more the telecom operator part, but also the data center investment in infrastructure, so building a dedicated infrastructure for AI, because what we need to know is that the infrastructure needed for IT classical needs is not the same infrastructure need for AI. In the term of energy, the power need, also cooling needs. We are speaking about liquid cooling, which is more developed because there is a lot of heat generating by GPUs. So we need to have the infrastructure to implement this. Also space is not the same because we need a lot of GPUs to run training. So we need a lot of space for data center, also for the height of the data center. So there is a lot of requirements. I will not go to all of the technical details, but what we need to know is that infrastructure dedicated for AI is far different from the classical infrastructure. The third point is interconnection and also the connectivity. Our subject today is one of the subject is 5G. So for the development of use case, 5G will help a lot. We have the chance in Tunisia